All right, I think that's our cue.
All
Hey
right.
everyone, welcome. My name's Hunter Miller. I'm the Florida Gulf Coast Field Representative for Oceana. I'm just absolutely delighted to be hosting tonight's Ocean Steward Spotlight. My colleagues and I on Oceana's field team really get to work with some amazing groups, individuals, and ocean stewards, and they help us and we help them mutually to win victories for our oceans. And we've been hosting amazing folks across the country on this series, and we really want to bring in diverse backgrounds, diverse folks who are possibly can connect with more ocean lovers and share stories that might be important or inspiring to them. So yeah, I think generally here in Florida, it's been a tough time, certainly with the pandemic and all the pain that we've shared together as a society, and mix in all the other challenges we have, especially when it comes to our oceans. It's a challenging time, but I think when we highlight these amazing folks, it gives us hope and a path forward, and something to kind of hold on to. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to introduce our ocean steward tonight, Rabbi Ed Rosenthal. Rabbi Ed is the executive director and campus rabbi for the Suncoast Hillels and the founder of Tikkun Hayam, also known as Scubi Jews. And Ed works to show the wonders of the underwater world through Jewish eyes while raising awareness and taking action on the myriad of threats it faces. And he believes that when Jews get involved in any issues, substantive change takes place. Tikkun Hayam was created in order to get the Jewish community involved to repair the sea. So Rabbi Ed, thank you for joining us. Really happy to have you.
Hunter, thank you for having me. It's really, it's a pleasure and an honor. I mean, I love Oceana, so thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Well, we've met before, and I know a bit of your story, but not all of our viewers and listeners do. And I think a great place to start is actually the beginning. So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about maybe your defining moment, or where or when did you fall in love with the ocean and find that connection?
Well, I'm a Midwesterner. I was born in landlocked St. Louis, but I grew up watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau and Flipper and reruns of Sea Hunt, and I was always drawn to it. And when I was 16, I asked my parents if I could get scuba certified. And my mother, in her typical Jewish mother fashion, said that if God meant for us to be underwater, he would have given us gills. And so clearly it was no. And I accepted that. But my first year of rabbinical studies was in Jerusalem. And I went with classmates on a hiking trip in the Sinai desert. And we made our way all the way down to Sharm el-Sheikh at the southern tip of the Sinai. And this landlocked Midwesterner went snorkeling for the first time. And I was just overwhelmed by standing on the beach, looking out to this vast ocean of cobalt blue and the sun and the sky and the waters. And it was just so overwhelming. And I put my face in the water with this mask, and colors that I never imagined existed, blues and purples and greens and yellows, and so much life. You know, in the desert, you look and there's nothing. And then as I looked under the water, thousands and thousands of fish and coral like I had never seen. And I had this call, you know, like the sirens calling me to go deeper. And I went under, and I realized then that I was a Midwesterner because I got a mouthful of salt water, and I came up coughing and sputtering, but I was hooked. So when I came back at the end of that year and was in Cincinnati, I got my scuba certification, and I've been hooked ever since.
Oh man, just listening to that, I mean, the way you described it, you took me there. I mean, I was there right with you when you were describing that. And holy cow, yeah, I mean, those physical experiences when we have the opportunity to kind of see the wonder of of the natural world of our oceans and see the power and beauty, it's hard not to be completely hooked on that. That's so wonderful. What a great story. I want to move on because I've heard you speak about this next question before, and I absolutely have always kind of globbed onto it and thought, wow, that's really amazing. But you often speak about the Jewish tradition being filled with deep spiritual teachings about water and the sea. Yet you point out that many Jews have not been exposed to this part of your heritage. Can you tell us more about that link between Jewish people and the sea and how that's informed you to take on the responsibility to be such a strong advocate and steward of our oceans?
Sure. The Jewish tradition is, the environment is an intrinsic part of the Jewish tradition. All of our holidays our major holidays are centered around the agricultural cycle. So you've got, for example, Passover, which we're celebrating right now, is the springtime festival. And then Shavuot in 7 weeks was the festival of the first fruits that would just, when the fields would really come into fruit. And then Sukkot in the fall was the harvest festival. And then we've got another holiday, Tu B'Shvat, which is the new year of trees. And Judaism is not really a religion of faith. Judaism is a religion of law. And there are many laws in Judaism that are centered around our relationship with the land and nature in general. And so, but the thing is that we humans are terrestrial creatures. And so the nature in Judaism, which is so prevalent, is really on the surface. Again, it's the holidays, it's our relationship with the land. And there's very little with water or the ocean. Water is viewed more as a vehicle of cleansing or purification. And to get into the very essence, the spiritual essence of water, you have to dig deeper. So much of the learning that I've delved into is from the part of our tradition called the Kabbalah, which is often translated as Jewish mysticism. But I never refer to it as mysticism because mysticism implies magic. Excuse me. And there's no magic in the Kabbalah. It's really just the spiritual teachings of Judaism. As I said, Judaism is a religion of law. And people look at it and they say, it tells you, eat this, don't eat this, do this, don't do that, which some people say it's hard to find spirituality in that. But in the Kabbalah, that's where you find the deep spiritual teachings of Judaism. And when you look to the Kabbalah, there you see such wonder with regard to the water. So for example, in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 95, it says, Asher lo hayam b'hu asahu, the sea is God's. And then later on it says, V'ha'aretz natan livnei adam, but the dry land was given to humans. So it's an indication that the sea, the marine environment, is not ours. And so I always have thought that there's sort of almost a spiritual aversion to the marine environment, which is why in our tradition, you don't find that many people really working towards it. They're all over the terrestrial environment. I mean, that's everywhere in our tradition. But when it comes to the sea, they're not, because it's not ours. But the Kabbalah teaches that this world is a reflection of the true reality, which is the metaphysical realm, the spiritual realm, if you will, and that everything in our world, or in our universe, if you will, is a mere reflection of its deeper spiritual essence. And so the tradition says, if everything in this world is a reflection of the spiritual realm, what then is the reflection of what the Kabbalah refers to as the light, Ha'or, but which, if you want to use more commonly accepted terminology, you could say, instead of the light, you could say God. And so it asks the question, what is the reflection or the manifestation of God in our world? And the Kabbalah is explicit. It says the manifestation of the light in our world is water. And the fundamental aspect of Judaism is the unity of God. We say Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And we don't compromise on the unity of God. But my mother, she should rest in peace, thought God was an old man with a long white beard on the top of Mount Sinai. I said, Mom, I was there. Trust me, it's not. And so when we understand this concept of the light or the deity, whatever term you want, as manifest in our world as water, and the unity of that entity, there's no more unifying force than water on the planet. You can take an eyedropper with water and drop one drop in the ocean, and that one drop becomes the entire ocean.
Mhm.
There's not a single living creature that exists on this planet that's not mostly water. We share, it's the thing that unites all creatures, all creation, not just humans, but all living beings, animals, humans, plants. And when you talk about water, you can understand. To me, I should say I understand. I don't force my beliefs on anybody, but my understanding is that unity, which is the deity, is manifest in our world as water.
Well, thank you for that. And again, I'd never really heard it explained that way before, and had that kind of theological, explanation. And I find it really fascinating. I think we see similar themes across religions across the world in terms of just generally broad strokes, the sacredness of the natural world and our call to be stewards of that and take care of that, as God's creation for us. But anyway,
well, that's why when I look, I'm a rabbi, so
yeah.
I speak from the Jewish tradition. But the reality is, it's sort of, to me, religion is like language. I grew up Jewish. My family has always been Jewish all the way back to the time of Abraham. We've never been anything else. I don't know anything else. But I've studied other religions, and there's a thread through all of them. And to me, the water is the same in every religion. It's got this sacred character. And I would imagine that if every religion delved a little deeper into their own traditions, they would see the same things that I see for mine. It's what unites us. Religion has a tendency to separate us. I believe the water unites us.
Yeah, and so you take all that and that's informing action and informing the manifestation of the things that you've created and been a part of. For instance, Scubi Jews, and every time I talk or mention about Scubi Jew and the work that you all are doing, my colleagues and my friends immediately perk up and they're fascinated because it's such a unique organization. Can you tell us about how the idea to start Scubi Jews came to be, and tell us about some of the trips and events and activities that you've done over the years?
Well, Scubi Jew actually began, and it's called Scubi Jew. It's open to everybody. But since I'm the campus rabbi, the students humor me and call it Scubi Jew. I actually started it about 22 years ago when I was the campus rabbi at Emory University in Atlanta. And it was really just a fun way to engage students. There's a program called Birthright, which sends young college-age Jewish students to Israel for a free trip because if they've never been there before. And when it first started, there were hundreds of students applying for just a few spots. And I really felt bad for those who didn't get on the trip. So I looked at their applications and I was surprised to see how many of them were actually scuba divers. So I thought, what can I do to engage them so they're not upset about not going on the trip? And it was just, hey, you're a diver, let's get together. And that's really how it started. And over the years, it's grown and developed. And when I came to Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, two of their biggest majors are marine biology and environmental studies. And so what began simply as a program to engage students has really turned into something which I never even imagined. I mean, I've been a rabbi for 32 years. Oh, I take that back, 34 years. Oh, and in the 34 years, it is unquestionably the most personally and spiritually fulfilling program I've ever done. And to do underwater meditation with students it's a profound experience. And so we've done all kinds of, because it's not just the spiritual programs, because as I said before, Judaism is a religion of law, and we have laws that are supposed to be, that are part of our lives. And I've been able to apply those laws to the marine environment. So in Judaism, we have this concept called Bal Tashchit, which comes from the Bible, the book of Deuteronomy, which says that when you lay siege to a city, it's forbidden to cut down a fruit tree. Out of the blue, forbidden to cut down a fruit tree. But from that one statement, and it's literally like 1 or 2 verses, came a whole category of laws which say it is forbidden in Judaism to cause waste or needless destruction. So applying Bal Tashchit to the marine environment, you can see so many areas where it's a violation of this law. Plastic pollution. Plastic is such a huge waste and a destroyer of the environment. So from a Jewish perspective, it's a violation of Bal Tashchit. So I teach the students about that. And then we go and dive against debris, or we do waterfront cleanups, or we do a number of different things. In Judaism, we have a law called Sarba Lehim, where in Judaism, it's forbidden to cause pain to an animal. So I taught the students about this a few years ago, and then we went to the Bahamas and we learned about sharks and shark finning and how it's such a horrific violation of Sarba Lehim. And then you and I actually worked on an article a few years ago about the shark finning bill in Congress, in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And I shared that with the students and showed how they can take their Jewish tradition and apply it towards activism and education. And that it's not just because it's the cool thing to do, mm-hmm. but because we're part of this 4,000-year-old history and tradition. And it's a way of showing them how their Jewish tradition and their passion for the marine environment comes together. So it's turned into, people hear Scubi Jew and they say, oh, that's so cute. And I said, no, it's really not. It's a very serious environmental organization. And the students do great work.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, from my exposure and experience with the group, you know, seeing like undergrad students in college kind of being interested in the environment or our oceans, kind of grab hold of this stuff and then going on dive trips with you, or going to organize beach cleanups and continuing their studies, of course, but that all starting to click for them and seeing them become leaders, you know, getting up in front of tons and tons of people at rallies or planning big, unique events. These are your students that are kind of taking that and you can see that growth and development within those young stewards, those young.
Oh yeah, and Oceana has been a big part of that. I mean, we our students organized with you. I got to just enjoy the event. But a couple of years ago, we had a silent disco to raise awareness about sonic pollution. And we had with you, we did a program of Barks for Sharks, where Eckerd is a pet-friendly campus, and people all came with their pets and their dogs dressed up in shark costumes. It was a lot of fun. But what they did was they organized a petition calling on our state to ban shark fins. So so Oceana has been a real force for our students and really had a big impact on the work that they're doing. So thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure. It's such a mutually beneficial relationship, and likewise brings me joy. So it's great. I love it. So, you know, I think, you know, staying on that thread of working with students, you're working with a lot of young students, a lot of young Jewish students who are learning so much about the world and their place in it. And, you know, you're guiding them and teaching them things. But I was just wondering, like, what lessons or bits of wisdom might have you gotten over the years from the students? Is there something that we can learn from young students or young Jewish students? You know, I really love hearing and learning from my elders, but it's also good to kind of pull out that bit of wisdom of a younger generation that maybe we don't know quite as well.
Yeah, and it's not just Jewish students. I mean, we have so many students who are involved with Scubi Jew who are not Jewish. And
Right.
more than anything, they inspire me. I've been,
Mhm.
like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. And to see through their eyes, because these are marine biology majors, environmental study majors. They understand. I mean, they're learning how the ocean works, how the environment works. My job is not to teach them how it works. My job is to teach them reverence for it,
Mhm.
and to be able to see through their eyes the wonder um, in a way which isn't clinical, which isn't scientific, but which really opens them up to a whole new experience. It inspires me, and their passion for the ocean and for the marine environment in general is such that, other than my wife and kids, it's what makes me get up out of bed every morning. and
Yeah.
and I learn, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a marine biologist. So what I learned from them, I learned something new about the marine environment in every conversation that I have with them. And so it's just, like I said, it's so inspiring.
That's great.
They also keep me young.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta stick around young people that give us life and energy and
Absolutely.
inspiration. So obviously the last year has been so difficult. We've kind of have been out of doing in-person events, and that's probably put challenges on the group and Scubi Jew and the outreach that you have. So as we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we're obviously still very much in this pandemic. How did you adapt to that situation, and kind of what are you looking forward to coming back into, and what is Scubi Jew's future? What's next for you all?
Our future is, well, we're fortunate because everything we do is outdoors. So
Mhm.
our programs have always been socially distanced with masks.
Mhm.
And once you're underwater, it's not a problem.
Right.
So we've done a lot of shore-based cleanups. We've continued our dive against debris. We put a little bit on hold this semester just because we've had a little trouble with the starboard engine of our boat, and we haven't been able to get. We've adopted the St. Petersburg downtown reef through Project Aware, and when things are normal, our students go out probably every other week and remove marine debris from the reef, and which again is hard work. There's almost no visibility in Tampa Bay, and the reefs are
Yeah,
artificial reefs, so they're
right,
not beautiful coral. It's concrete slabs and rebar, where
right.
fishing nets and line and ropes and anchors have all just gotten intertwined. And so
Sure.
it's hard work.
Yeah,
But we're going to pick that up. We're hoping to convert our boat over to a solar power after the pandemic, once we're working on it. It's not a
yeah,
done deal. It's looking positive. So we're going to be out. The students are going to be out. But what we really are doing is we're expanding beyond campus. And so we're going out into the community, and our big program that we have planned coming up, we have two major events. In the Jewish tradition, on Rosh Hashanah, there's a tradition that after we finish the prayer services in the synagogue, you're supposed to go to a body of water, and there's a short service called Tashlich, where we throw bread or something in the water, symbolically casting our sins off and starting the year fresh. And so a few years ago, one of my students said, wait a second, there's already more than enough human sin in the water. Why are we throwing more in? And so we organized a reverse tashlich, where we removed uh, debris from the waterfronts. And it started out with 5 students. And in 2019, before the pandemic, we spread it as far as we could for the first time. And we had about 850 volunteers in 49 different locations in the US, Canada, Israel, and Argentina, removing thousands of pounds of marine debris. And so this year, October 12th, we're doing it again, and we want to double the number of participants. And we want to make this something that becomes part of the Jewish calendar, where
yeah,
people think, oh, Rosh Hashanah, we got to go clean the water. And so we're
yeah.
working on that one. And another program which is growing is we kicked off something called that we're calling our Blue Green Initiative. everybody thinks when you go environmental, you go green. And we're trying to remind people that, it's actually a blue planet that we live on.
Yeah.
So our Blue Green Initiative, a couple of years ago, and this is actually, we're opening this up not just to the Jewish community, but to the entire faith-based community. So before the pandemic, I reached out to all of my Hillel colleagues in North America. There are about 500 Hillels across the country. And I asked how much single-use plastic they consume, and by serving meals to students and all the programs. And it was really devastating, the amount of single-use plastic we were creating. So I reached out to a company called Verterra, which produces all wood compostable cutlery and plates. And so unlike the corn compound cutlery that requires industrial level composting,
Right.
the Verterra products you can throw in your backyard and they'll be gone in a month or so.
Right.
But what keeps people from using it is it's so expensive. Well, as it turned out, the owner of Verterra is this young Jewish guy, and I told him what I wanted to do to get all the Hillels in North America off single-use plastics. And he agreed to give us a 50% discount. And we figured that the difference between a Hillel that serves 100 meals a week to students, the difference between the discounted Verterra cutlery and plastic was only about $200 a year. So I found a donor who paid for it. And I paid the $200 difference to 53 Hillels that committed to get off plastic and use the cutlery that could be composted. And I've got funding to do that for 2 more years. And so 53 Hillels got rid of their plastic. We removed 183,000 pieces of single-use plastic from production and ultimately from the ocean. And I've negotiated some more with Verterra, and they've agreed to extend the 50% discount to any faith-based organization, not just Jewish.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if there are churches and mosques and temples and synagogues that want to get rid of their plastic, the difference will only be about $200 a year if you serve 100 meals a week. So we're making this available, and I'm more than if people go to repairtheseed.org or Rabbi Ed at repairtheseed.org, they can reach out to me and I'll set it up for them. My dream, my vision, my goal is that the faith-based community, because we're really not there collectively, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu.
Right.
My goal is to make this something that's part of the faith communities of America and hopefully beyond.
Yeah.
But I want to help. I want everybody to be part of this. And so
I love it. Yeah. And that is so amazing. And that it's also an example that one person can, think about all the reduction of single-use plastics that you spearheaded. So again, I love the inspiration and just, I want to know more. So we have to catch up again. I want to hear
I would
more
love that.
And help that grow. That's amazing, amazing feat. I wish I could talk to you all night long, but we do have a hard stop tonight because we have a Break Free from Plastic rally tonight at 7, and we're going to get ready for that. But I do want to remind our listeners to please catch the next Ocean Steward Spotlight on April 15th at 6 p.m. here on Facebook. And we'll be speaking with Jackie Nunez of The Last Plastic Straw. But again, thank you, Rabbi Ed, for your work and your partnership and everything that you do for our oceans and for young ocean stewards. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I can't wait till we can get out there and be together in person, and hopefully that's sooner than later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hunter, and thank you to Oceana for everything that you all do. You're wonderful. Thank you.